Welcome to the Long-Term Investing Podcast with Baskin Wealth Management. I'm Barry Schwartz, President and Chief Investment Officer. In this podcast, we ignore all the noise and have conversations about the things that matter in today's markets. It's what we talk about with each other here in the office, and we want to share those conversations with you. Please stay tuned for our legal disclaimer at the end of the episode. How's it going, everybody? Thanks for joining us today on the Long-Term Investing Podcast. I'm Barry Schwartz.
I'm Ernest Wong, head of research.
You are head of research. So have you been watching the Blue Jays finally clinched a playoff?
Yeah, long time
Are you on
coming.
the bandwagon now?
I am.
Yeah, me too.
Wouldn't really consider myself an avid baseball fan, but I like hopping on the bandwagon when it's convenient to do so.
It's exciting now. Hockey's going to start. Baseball, getting to the playoffs. Of course, the Raptors starting up. Not so exciting stuff on the markets, although a lot of volatility as per usual. And we're going to get to one of our biggest holdings. We're going to talk about its conference call that it had to discuss AI, the impact of AI on its portfolio, and that's Constellation Software. So we're pretty excited to share this episode with you. And before we get into that, let's get into this. If you like this podcast, please subscribe to us on Apple, on Spotify, and YouTube. We really appreciate your comments. We would love your 5-star reviews, any feedback, any suggestions. You know where to find us. And of course, Baskin Wealth Management is open for business. We're happy to meet with you to discuss your portfolio. We manage money across Canada for high net worth individuals and families and institutions, as well as foundations. We have a long track record, and I urge you to check out our website at baskinwealth.com to find out more. So Ernest, as we're approaching the end of summer, I guess, the stock markets are looking forward to a slowdown in terms of the economy, as well as interest rate cuts, both in Canada and the U.S. We saw Canada and the U.S. cut interest rates, I think, last week. Today's September 24th. Yep. Yeah, so the expectation is for further interest rate cuts. Well, you don't cut interest rates if things are rocking and rolling, but I think they're also probably cutting interest rates as inflation is maybe less bubbly than expected.
Yeah, I think the hope for the markets is that interest rate cuts will give some relief to some sectors such as home building that have been struggling with high interest rates.
For sure.
And then that obviously filters in through the rest of the economy.
So I was speaking to a client whose daughter is in the United States, has a house in California. They currently have a mortgage of 2.5%. But the house
30
is
years?
Whatever it is, yeah. So like that's a wonderful interest rate. But the client's daughter wants to move. They've outgrown their house. They don't love the neighborhood. But the problem is if they move, the new mortgage rate on a new house is closer to 6%.
Right.
Right. So it's a challenge. The client is trying to figure out, well, maybe I'll just help my daughter by selling some stocks instead of having them go with a high mortgage rate. So I guess this is what's going on in the U.S. No one wants to move because if you have a low mortgage rate, it doesn't follow you.
No, and we've certainly seen that with a lot of the names that we follow, where like even Watsco, it's a distributor of air conditioners that we own. Yeah. And they've been saying that, well, people simply aren't moving. And so that's usually an event that leads to, like, when people move, they'll take a look at their machine, like their systems.
For sure.
And then that's when they drive an upgrade.
It always seems that every time I've moved, Ernest, the air conditioner conks out a week after we buy the house, right? So that's been my experience with 3 houses so far. So I can't speak for other people, but it's something that I don't think anybody wants to change until they move into a new house and they figure it out. We had a big conference call with Constellation Software. I don't know if it did more good or more damage, but you listened to it. I read the transcript. Everybody has their own thoughts on it, but it's very interesting. Mark Leonard started the conference call pretty much saying no one can predict the future. And we say that too with the stock market. In the short term, no one can predict the future, but what we are always comfortable with is if you own companies with a history of great capital allocation, with smart abilities to reinvest the free cash flows at high rates of return, you're probably going to do very, very well over the long term if that company can reinvest cash flows at high rates of return. And that's exactly what Constellation Software has done throughout its business history. It has acquired niche software, vertical market software companies, and used the free cash flow that each acquisition generates to keep on buying more and more companies. There's a number of things that are going on with Constellation. Growth is slowing a bit as it becomes a gigantic company, but I think people don't appreciate the levers and drivers that Constellation has in its arsenal to continue to have what we think is extraordinary growth going forward. So, Ernest, let's get into the Constellation Software AI conference call and what we learned and our takeaways.
Yeah, so I think before we talk about Constellation, I think it's useful to kind of frame what about investment, something that I think a lot of people don't think about with investing, which is that I think a lot of people often think, well, there's a risk for whatever, and therefore you shouldn't own the stock, right? That's not what investing is about. It's about deciding which risks you want to accept as an investor and whether the potential return is worth the risk that you're taking on. So for something like Constellation Software, or even Adobe, as we've talked about on previous podcasts many times, yes, there is risk involved with the company, but there's risk with every company.
Yeah, I mean, like, let's talk about Taiwan Semiconductor. Just a recent purchase in our portfolio, I think that fits the example perfectly. The risk we were willing to accept is that China will invade Taiwan, and crazy stuff could happen as a result of Taiwan Semi's business. But we were willing to accept that risk because the company's growth is tremendous and the valuation was extremely reasonable. So in our opinion, that risk is already discounted in the market, right? We don't know if China will invade Taiwan. It could happen a year from now, 5 years from now, 100 years from now.
Right.
Impossible to know. But what we're seeing is just tremendous demand for AI and maybe a new super cycle for iPhones, which Taiwan Semi produces the chips for Apple. I mean, it's just an exciting business. And so you said it perfectly. There's no perfect investment. And at any one time, there's always going to be a bear thesis. Sometimes the crowd screams the bear thesis, whether it appears in the newspaper or on Twitter or in the headlines. Sometimes there's only a few people who articulate the bear thesis, so it's not well known in the stock. But what we try never to do is when the crowd is yelling, sell, 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 and it's going to get so bad, that's where we really have to trust the research that we do and our takeaways from owning that business and following it for a very long period of time.
Right. And so for Constellation, I think even Mark Leonard would acknowledge that there is some element of risk with regards to AI. There is the possibility that it impacts their business. But I think what we have to do as investors is take a step back and say, okay, there is risk, but do we still think the stock is good value given all the good things that they have done and maybe some of the opportunities that they might have going forward? And so I think that is kind of a useful backdrop of thinking about how we think about stocks.
Yeah. I mean, just to go broad on AI, to say that AI may disrupt or crush software distributors or software vendors seems a very naive statement, because you could also say that AI will benefit these companies to some degree, right? So for every argument, there should be a great counterpoint, especially when it's theoretical at the moment.
Right. Yeah. And so this was a very interesting event because...
Why did this come about, by the way?
So the reason why Constellation Software was holding this event was because a shareholder of Constellation Software had reached out to Mark Leonard and said, we want to ask you about questions about your strategy with AI. And so Mark said, okay, well, why don't we open it to the public instead? Why don't we make it so that everybody, because this is a topic that everybody's thinking about, so why don't we do a public conference call instead? And that was why they're having this event.
So Constellation Software doesn't hold conference calls when it reports quarterly earnings. No, it does hold a virtual meeting for its annual meeting. Sometimes Mark Leonard will answer some questions about the company on the company's website, but the communication is more like a Berkshire, right? They're in their in their quarterly reports. There's no fluffy words.
No.
Right? We reported a record quarter, blah, blah, blah. We're so excited. Just here's the numbers, right? So I guess some people might say, well, it's a little strange for Constellation to talk about this, but this is a pretty transformational opportunity or threat, AI. Right. And so it is worth discussing and not waiting till the next annual meeting, which would happen in May 2026. So kudos to the management team for getting out in front of this. I mean, they won't talk about the stock price, but with the stock price falling 20% over the past 2 months, that will get your shareholder base and your employees very, very concerned.
Especially because Constellation stock has been such a consistent performer.
Yes.
Where I think whenever anything happens, I think it causes people to kind of question what's going on.
Well, join the club. There is no company that escapes drawdowns. There is not one stock in the history of investments that goes straight up every single year. Once in a while, there's a lucky coin flip for some companies, but even so, this is what's happened to Constellation Software, a drawdown. And now as investors, we have to dissect the information and decide, is it priced in? Are the opportunities even better now? Anyways, enough fluff.
Yep, okay.
Let's get into the details.
Yep. So the participants on the call were Mark Leonard himself and 4 employees that remained anonymous. They didn't identify themselves.
Why is that?
On the call? Mark said he didn't want those 4 employees to be bombarded by shareholder contact subsequently.
Okay.
But I think this is interesting because most conference calls usually have the CEO, they have maybe the CFO, maybe the head of investor relations. For this conference call at Constellation, there were no business unit leaders. So their head of M&A was not there. Any of the heads of Topicus or Valeris Group or any of their subdivisions were not present at the meeting. It was just Mark and those 4 AI employees.
Oh, got it.
So those 4 employees within Constellation, they worked at various operating groups, but their role was to explore and think about how to implement AI in the business. And so that was kind of the backdrop for this call and how the call was structured.
Okay.
So I think in the beginning, you said that I think Mark admitted that no one kind of knew how AI would play out. But I think you kind of got some hints throughout the entire thing about how he was thinking about it.
Okay.
Because he started with a story about radiologists and how Geoffrey Hinton, the famous AI, godfather of AI, had predicted in 2016 that radiology was going to be completely done by AI in the near future and that there would be no need for radiologists.
Everybody
anymore.
read those articles where we're going to need fewer radiologists.
Yeah.
And what's happened since AI's been around?
And what ended up happening was that AI augmented the effectiveness of radiology, and the number of radiologists actually grew 17% since 2016. So even the person who invented AI
can't even predict what AI is going to. The winners and losers of AI.
And I think that set a good tone for the entire conference call because I think you can kind of I think he was subtly hinting that, well, just because there's AI now doesn't mean the whole business is going to be extinct in 2 years, right? You have no idea how it'll end up playing out. Maybe some of the scenarios are negative, but maybe some of them are positive, and some of them end up working in our favor. And so I think with regards to AI generally for Constellation Software, there are two primary concerns.
Okay.
The first one is that because Constellation's business model is owning and providing these vertical market software products.
Yeah, over 1,000. It owns over 1,000 different vertical market software companies at the moment.
Yep.
Yeah.
Which perform a specific function for the customer in a specific market. And the worry is that customers at these end markets will be able to use AI to write their own custom software and displace Constellation Software.
Sorry, couldn't help but laugh on that one.
So
But that's fine.
And not only that, but that there might be new competition as well. So from companies that are using AI to write up a new version of the software to compete against Constellation.
Sure, employees are absolutely going to want to work harder and create their own version of software at a nail salon or a golf club that uses Constellation Software. Sure, that's going to happen.
So I think that was the first element of worry for Constellation Software. The second element of worry for Constellation is around their capital deployment, which is about how AI impacts their ability to complete deals. And in this area, they did not spend a lot of time on this topic. And I think it's probably even the more important driver of Constellation stock price, because if you look at the price that Constellation stock is trading at right now relative to what you would pay for a portfolio of Constellation software businesses, there is quite a heavy implied. Like the market is expecting that Constellation will continue to do deals, and so to the extent that because of AI or whatever, they're not going to be able to deploy as much capital going forward, then you would expect that the stock falls.
Why wouldn't it be able to deploy capital going forward? Because there would be fewer companies to acquire, because AI would, I just don't follow.
I think because for the same dynamics, right? Where either because some of the companies that they were going to acquire were displaced by AI.
Fair enough. Okay.
Or because vertical market software as a category is not as needed anymore.
Okay, fair enough. So that would be the rationale. Just okay.
And I'll talk a little bit more about this point later. But with regards to the competition risk element, I think that Constellation made several good. I thought that they made a pretty good defense for their business. The first thing is that it's very early days for AI, right? There's a lot of cool demos and kind of anecdotes about how AI is improving the efficiency of the coders, but it's not clear, at least from Constellation's perspective on the ground, it's not clear that this ends up actually playing out after you've written the code. So I think what they've seen, for instance, is that the code that is being written by AI can often be buggy and is not adequate. The tools are not able to correct these bugs in a timely fashion. So as a result, like, you might have saved money writing the code initially, but you're just making it up subsequently. So obviously
that's their experience at the moment.
Yeah, that's their experience, and obviously this changes every day because the tools are getting better.
That's
every
right.
day.
That's right. And this is a snapshot in time of Constellation Software. AI, as you mentioned, is in its early days. Maybe not every single software business unit is using AI. Maybe some are using it more. Maybe some don't need it. But the tools, as you said, are getting better at a pretty fast rate. And given how much money the world is going to spend on AI and data centers, hopefully it does get a lot better.
Yeah, and so the second thing is whether customers are going to be using AI to write their own software and replace Constellation products. And I think it really doesn't sound like it's an area that they're too concerned about, for many reasons. Number one is that their customer base is usually very slow, mature industries. So I think they have a large government business. They sell to utilities. They sell to like lumber mills, right? These are not technologically savvy industries that that number one are maybe willing to have the ability to rewrite all of their software even if they wanted to. And number two, in the end of the day, like what are you even really trying to do?
No
right?
idea.
Right?
Yeah.
Like
you already have a platform, someone doing it for you. You
Right.
know it works great. You can call them up and get customized changes.
yeah.
You all of a sudden think you're going to bring that in-house and say, abracadabra, build me portfolio management software. I want this, this, and this. Okay, and it's done.
Right.
That's some magical thinking that I don't think is, it could happen someday in the future, but it seems very, very unlikely in the near term.
Especially because for a lot of these customers, it's like think about a utility, right? It's essential that the software works. Like you can't have bugs in this software.
And your software cost is generally a small portion of your revenues, right? It's not like software costs are your most major costs. Usually your most major costs are your people.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I think that's why AI is actually an opportunity for Constellation Software, because with these types of customers, what they care about at the end of the day, not that they don't care about saving money,
Yeah.
but what they care about at the end of the day is their software doing what they want it to do? Is it solving their business problem, right? Like, is it billing properly? Is it ensuring that customer service is being provided, right? They're not caring about saving the thousands or even maybe probably not millions, but like thousands of dollars that they would get from rewriting their own software and having to maintain it themselves.
But there's even a greater point to that. So let's say you're a Baskin Wealth Management and you have a portfolio management software that you pay for a lot of money. Okay. So let's say the regulations change or the rules change, right? This is a company that provides us with the software. They're laser focused on what's going on in the industry. And they can also share learnings from other competitors that use the same software.
Yes.
Right. And so I think that's a misunderstood, very important part of these niche softwares is the more users, the more benefit everybody has. If everybody's vibe coding their own software, there's no learnings from each other, in my opinion. But I'm not an AI expert.
No, and I think the last part is that just the very nature of what Constellation does for some of these customers is that to develop software that powers the operations, they need to understand every aspect of the customer's business.
For sure.
And often they understand it even better than the customer does themselves.
Yeah, then usually they hire industry individuals who have worked in that industry, whether portfolio management software or operating a golf club, who understand what the customer is looking for and understand the rules and regulations behind that business and how, and how to build a software that will meet the needs of its customers.
And so to the extent that its customers are experimenting with AI tools, they care a lot about whether it's accurate. And so this naturally leads itself to using a third-party vendor like Constellation, where they have many customers, right? They can test out their products to ensure that it's 99.999% accurate before it's going to the lumber mill or the government and saying, look, we have this AI product that you can add on to your products and it works for sure because we've tested it. And so that's, it just doesn't seem to me that like the risk, it just seems to me that the risk that there's a mass wave of utilities now starting to rewrite their own software just to displace Constellation. Like that seems like a very remote risk to me.
It's a possibility that they could have fewer customers in some type of verticals. There's always a chance, and that's the risk that AI will provide. But did Mark Leonard also talk about the opportunities for AI?
No, and
Yeah.
that's the opportunity,
Yeah.
which is that now because they are able to do things more efficiently, uh, and because of the deep industry knowledge that they have with these customers, the opportunity is for them to actually create new workflows using AI
Okay.
for their customers, using maybe some of the data that they have, and to be able to go out and implement that with. Yeah.
And has there been demonstrated success with that? According to Constellation Software, implementing AI, has it improved efficiencies? Have they touted any of the benefits for customers or for the company at the moment?
I think they've made they had a few case studies where they've use AI for things like billing, for things like customer service, for things like marketing lead generation, but nothing extremely transformational so far.
Okay. And on the flip side, they haven't seen any vertical or industry be completely displaced today by an
No,
AI
not yet.
purely written software. No.
No, and I think one other point they made is that a lot of the time when they see new quote unquote AI competition, it's often a marketing label by somebody who wants to obviously sell the fact that they're a more modern AI powered solution.
Yeah.
That doesn't actually reflect necessarily the reality of what the product is.
All I can tell you, Ernest, is if your software doesn't work, your business is swear word effed.
Yes.
Right. And so we need our software, whether you're a nail salon, a golf club, a wealth management company. Yeah. If our software is not working and someone switches us because they wanted to save a few $1,000s to an AI version, that person's going to get fired, right? And the company's going to be in trouble, right? So I'm very, very wary of the future with AI software, but to each their own. You want to save some bucks? Good luck to you.
And I think one last thing I would add on this topic is that Constellation's business model is that they're a very decentralized organization where all the different business units and even the companies under them, they receive directional guidance about how best practices and those kinds of things. But ultimately, it's their business at the end of the day, and so that allows them the nimbleness to be able to respond for something like AI, and we've seen this in the past with things that other technological inflections in the past, where it's up to the business unit and the company to decide, do we do a rewrite of our code to migrate customers to the cloud, for instance? It's so to the extent that there is a vertical where maybe you are seeing the need to respond to AI threats, I think they will do the right thing and act accordingly. And I think that's the best way to approach something like this for a company that has 1,000 companies, where you leave it to the individual company to decide how best to respond, rather than have a top-down mandate to say, okay, we're all in on AI, right?
At the moment, the market has spoken. As we all know, the market in the short term is, as Warren Buffett calls, a voting machine. And when these risks come out, when people read comments where Constellation Software could be completely disrupted, your natural reaction is, holy smokes, get me out of that stock, right? Without any regard to valuation or fundamentals. It's really the fear, the scare, and it's not, this is not an exclusive issue to Constellation Software.
Yes.
Every single software company, whether they're a large enterprise company or a vertical market software company, is I think their valuations have been hit as a result of this narrative at the moment. There are times when the narrative proves out. There are times when the narrative becomes completely untrue. And so this is an evolving story, one that we'll watch. How will we pay attention? Well, we're going to do the same things we always do. Read a lot, listen to conference calls, get an understanding of what's going on in the industry, and make decisions based on that. Constellation Software is still an evolving business model. I don't think Mark Leonard has got his business model perfect yet, or what he wants to achieve. We can get some hints that there'll be more spin-offs to come. He's also laid the groundwork for more investing in venture capital, as well as potentially other areas. The whole point about investing is reinvesting free cash flows at high rates of return. And whether it's in software, whether it's Constellation switches to, I don't know, selling bottled water, all that will all that will matter is
I'd probably take the under on that one.
Yeah, I'll take the under, but you get the point. Is businesses look to compound cash flows, and that's the ultimate deciding factor on future valuations. Not this could happen or that could happen or oh my God. So these are the things that as investors we have to watch for. Yes, we can cherry pick Constellation Software right now as one that's maybe facing some kind of threats, but Ernest and I can sit for 3 hours here going through all 30 of our other companies and all the threats that they're facing and all the unknown threats. So I think you said it perfectly. Investing is about trying to determine what the risks are and how comfortable you are with them, and and really having conviction that the investments you own will grow over the long term, even with the threats that they face. And it's easy to talk about the negative scenarios, but I think there's a lot of counterpoints to the positive side as well. So I think one of the final concerns about Constellation Software is just as it grows, there's been a slowdown in acquisitions, right? 2024 was a gigantic year for Constellation for making acquisitions. They made 2 very large acquisitions. We haven't seen that in 2025. We're in a what have you done for me lately business. I get it. You want to see your companies who are acquirers keep on acquiring and grow faster, but they're business people. They're looking for opportunities. They're looking for the right time, the right valuation, and these things can be lumpy. So we'll just have to be patient, and I don't think you can take away anything from a slower year in terms of acquisitions, especially given this company's sole focus is to continue to acquire more companies.
That is actually one aspect that reduces the AI risk.
Okay.
Because so much of the valuation of the company is tied to the potential for them to make acquisitions. Mm-hmm. So even to the extent that you think maybe AI is a potential threat to their core business, so much of the value is really around them to be able to deploy that cash flow going forward. And more importantly, is because they are deploying the cash flow at such high rates of return. I think their hurdle rate it's not exactly explicitly stated out, but I think 25 to 30% targeting internal rate of return for their acquisitions. Yeah. Mm-hmm. It actually de-risks the quote unquote tail risk from things like AI.
This might be the best time in the world for Constellation to be aggressive making acquisitions, especially if sellers are, if valuations for sellers have gone down because maybe for whatever reason, right? Maybe there's fewer buyers. Maybe the private equity guys aren't going to step in right now. It's hard to know, but that's really our take on Constellation Software. I guess the bottom line for us is it's really business as usual. And, stock prices are going to go up. They're going to go down. And they're going to go down sometimes on news, sometimes on theoretical, on a whole bunch of different things. And, we love buying stocks where the thesis is unchanged, where the growth we think is still unchanged, where the valuations fall. I mean, that's to us as a long-term investor is what we're looking for. So, stay tuned for more long-term investment ideas from our podcast, and we'll be back here real soon. This podcast is for informational purposes only, and any forecasts on the economy, markets, or individual securities should not be viewed as investment advice, a recommendation or an offer or solicitation to buy or sell any securities. Clients of Baskin Wealth Management and the speakers on this podcast may own shares of the companies discussed. Information on this podcast is current as of the time of production and is subject to change. If you have any questions or would like to subscribe to these podcasts, visit our website at baskinwealth.com.